little side-by-side comparison of the Gen 5 19 and 17. I'm loving that slide stop. That's fun. Got one more, left-handed. Hey guys, Philip with Royal Range USA here in Nashville, Tennessee. Here to talk about the Generation 5 Glock 19 and 17. We're really excited to get our hands on it. We were one of the 100 ranges in the US picked by Glock to release this gun 5 days early. So we're really privileged to be able to do that, and we're excited about the new Glock. At first glance, it doesn't seem like they made a lot of changes, but when you really get into it, there's quite a bit, and we're excited about it. So enjoy. So we moved the camera to get you guys a little bit closer and a little bit more detailed shots of these guns. But again, Glock 19 and 17 Generation 5 is what we're going to be taking a look at. Really the differences between the two guns are pretty similar. So what we're going to do, just for simplicity, is just really focus on the 19 and some of the differences of that and a Generation 4. So we have a Generation 4 here, and obviously everything is safe and clear and there's no ammunition anywhere. So if you see me flopping these guns around, just know everything is cleared and safe. So Generation 5 underneath and Generation 4 up top. Let's talk about some of the major differences, or some of the first things that you're going to notice. At first it doesn't seem like there's a lot, but when you pay attention, they really did some changes to this gun, and I'm really liking it. So let's focus on the Gen 5 here. So the first thing that you're probably going to notice, and everyone's kind of commenting on, is the front finger grooves being sanded down and kind of going back to more of a Gen 1 style. So some of the original Glocks didn't have those finger grooves. I think it's Generation 3 was the first introduction of those finger grooves, and just make sure you know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about as far as the finger grooves. This is a Generation 4 here. And you see those finger grooves up front. So that's probably one of the most noticeable things right off the bat, is they've kind of filed those down, and I like it. I have medium-sized hands, and the grip feels really nice in the hand. You still have, one thing to note is you still have the 4 back straps that come with the gun. So if you have different size hands, of course, you can add those back straps, and it's kind of a one-size-fits-all. They did a good job on it. The only thing I wish they would have kind of done is did a little bit of an undercut on the frame here. They probably didn't, this is just pure speculation, but they probably didn't, just to retain, excuse me, some of the rigidity and strength in the trigger guard. But this is a really popular thing that people have been doing for a while. Some of the aftermarket companies have been filing down those finger grooves. So it's cool that Glock kind of caught on and did it in a factory model. I really like that feature. Also kind of crosses over to, if you're a big 1911 guy and 1911 fan, that flat front strap is pretty easy to get used to on the Glocks. One of the things we'll skip to is they changed the frame. So I'll take the magazine out and we'll talk about this first. So I want to make sure you guys can see this. Let me set this down real quick. And we'll grab the Generation 4 in comparison. So they've changed the magazine well. The Generation 5, which is here, and the Generation 4, which is here, you can see the differences. So they've incorporated into the gun a magazine well, and I'm a huge fan of this. There's tons of aftermarket options for the Generation 4s to kind of give you a little bit more of a funnel, and that really helps kind of getting that magazine into the gun, reloading quickly. And they did it in such a way that it's really, I'll give you kind of a side view, hopefully that angle works out. They did it in a way where it's really minimal, and it's not that big of a difference, and it's not obnoxious, and you really don't feel it when you actually, if you're gonna carry this gun inside the waistband, it's something that's barely noticeable. It actually took me a couple minutes to even notice it when I started fiddling with the guns and comparing them, so they did a good job on that. On the front, you can see that they have a little notch. Let me readjust here. They have a notch that they put into the front strap. And the reason they did this, and this is kind of going back to some of the older generations too, because this was something that they had previously, is they also changed we'll jump real quick to the magazines. They changed the magazines, or at least the base plate in the magazine. So you're gonna see it's a little bit larger, and they have a little bit more of a ledge in the front of the magazine. And that really kind of helps in conjunction with this cutout they have. It helps ripping the magazine out. So if you ever get your gun all fouled up, or you drop it in the dirt, or it's just dirty from shooting thousands of rounds through it, it gives you a ledge where you can really rip that magazine out. So they've always had one kind of in the rear, and that's kind of the design of this little space here, is to get your fingers around that magazine where you can rip that magazine out if you have any fouling or dirt or anything like that. So in a pinch, you can get that magazine out, get it refueled, and get it back in the fight. So really cool design feature of the grip that I really like. Another quick thing about the magazines is they changed the color of the follower. So a little bit different. They did have this orange follower, which is fine. I don't think it really has any major difference. It's kind of inconsequential. Still going to be a Generation 4, so you're going to be able to switch your magazine release on either one of these magazines. So your Gen 4 mags are still going to work in your Gen 5. So going back to the actual gun and the grip here, so we've looked at kind of some of the features of the grip. Let's talk about another big thing that they did, which was the slide release, and making this gun close to 100% ambidextrous. So you have a slide release on the right side of the gun, and obviously where it was previously on the left side of the gun. One of the things that I really like, and we're going to get into this kind of in more detail when it comes to when we look into the internals and take it apart, is they made the part really beefy, and there's a cutout in the slide to where this actually notches in the slide. So on other models of guns, it's been hard to release the slide, even on a quote-unquote ambidextrous slide stop. It's been hard to release the slide because the linkage just isn't beefy enough. Glock made sure that wasn't the case, and it's pretty easy to release that slide on the right side of the gun. So lefties, Glock really kind of helped you out here and gave you what you needed. Now, the magazine release, talking about ambidextrous, the magazine release is same as the Gen 4, but it's not 100% ambidextrous all the time. Meaning, you either have it on the left side of the gun, or you have it on the right side of the gun. Now, I'm a right-handed shooter, and I actually have mine usually set up on the right side of the gun anyway. I release the magazine with my middle finger. I'm a little weird. I have short thumbs. I can't really reach it. So that's how I normally set it up. But lefties, you can switch it over here, and you're going to be just fine. One other thing I forgot to mention is the front of the gun. Let me bring in this, move this out of the way. Let me bring in this Gen 4, and you're going to see the difference in the actual slide. So what they did is they rounded out the front of the slide. So it's going to be easier to get into holsters. You're not going to have as much as a defined ledge in the front of the gun. So getting back into a Kydex holster or whatever you're running is just going to be just that much easier. So small details, but in the long run, I think will make a difference, and just kind of the devil's in the details. And I think they did a good job on this one. As far as external, I think those are all the major differences. So recap real quick: ambidextrous slide release, the front grooves are sanded down, incorporated a mag well and that front cutout so where you can rip those magazines, rounded out the front portion of it, ambidextrous safety, or mag release, excuse me, magazine release as before. So those are some of the externals. We're going to take the guns apart and show you some of the differences that they've done on the inside of the gun. So disassembly is really going to be the same as the Generation 4. You kind of have your takedown bar right where it used to be, and it's the same procedure. Obviously, make sure everything is clean, or clear rather, magazine out, ammunition put away. The way that I kind of do it is I pull back on the slide, pull back the takedown bar, and then slide the slide forward. Now there is a little bit of a difference here because they did the cutout to make it an ambidextrous slide release. That notch is going to be in the frame. Now, if you've ever taken a Glock apart before on the previous generations, you had to slide the slide all the way forward and it comes off the frame like that. But with this difference, the rails that the slide actually ride on actually have the tendency to kind of pop off. You can kind of get the gun to come out right there. So you can see, I'm not looking at it, so it's kind of weird, but those rails actually come off right there. So you don't actually have to slide the slide all the way forward. So that might be something that you notice. It doesn't happen as much on the 19, but I'll show you on the 17, kind of the same thing. It's a lot more noticeable on the 17, so it comes right off, and I think that's just part of the geometry of the 17, just kind of where the rail sits. But it comes right off the slide, and you can slide back on and assemble it like that. So really not that big of a deal, just a little thing that we noticed in taking it apart. The slide just kind of fell off, and we noticed that you could do that. So that's one thing to note. So let's go back to just the frame here, and I'll pull in a Gen 4 frame. So we have a Gen 5 and a Gen 4 here. So you're going to see some of the differences right off the bat. You're going to see the linkage for your ambidextrous slide release. You're not going to see it here, and obviously you're going to see it on that side. One of the things I mentioned earlier is they really made it beefy. The linkage, you have this big metal bar, and it's a pretty dense piece of metal that goes to the front, links all the way through, and comes to the left side of the gun. And there's not a lot of play in it. So one thing you can do is actually lift this up and push down, and it's solid. So that's going to make sure that all you lefties or people that for some reason want to release the slide on the right side, you're going to get a really positive engagement on it, and it's going to really release that slide without much difficulty. You're not going to have to sit there and squeeze real hard on it. It's really simple. It works great. Another one of the differences that you're going to see is the trigger pack. So you'll notice in the rear here it's a little bit different, and there's a little bit of a ledge here. I'm not sure if you can see that. If not, we'll throw in some other pictures to make sure you get a good picture of it. But the trigger pack is a little different. I'm assuming that all those aftermarket triggers, the ZEV connectors and all those different things that people throw in these guns are going to have to be changed. The actual springs in the rear trigger pack look a little bit different to me. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, if not already, they've already worked up some designs to throw in some of those aftermarket triggers. The trigger, as just a random side note, is really a factory Glock trigger. It's the same consistent trigger that we've known for Glock for how many decades. So it's a great factory trigger. Nothing really to complain about at all from there. Your connector is going to be a little bit different, so I don't think you're going to be able to throw those connectors from a Gen 4 into a Gen 5. So you're probably going to have to come out with a completely different, springs, connectors, trigger packs, all that fun stuff in the new generation. So that's a consideration. One of the differences also in the Gen 4 to the Gen 5 is the number of pins. So you're going to see that you have 3 pins on a Gen 4, and that third pin, show you. This third pin up top is what holds your slide release into the gun. Because they went to a little bit different configuration, you're not going to have that third pin up top. So that's one thing also to take note. That's a little bit different in the Gen 5. Now, to the naked eye, to me, the locking block up here seems the exact same. There doesn't seem to be any difference, of course, Gen 5 here, Gen 4 here. there doesn't really seem to be any difference in the locking block. Kind of seems like the same stuff. Now there is a difference in the spring that they use for your takedown. So I'm not sure if you can see it. This is the Gen 4. You can see a little metal piece down there, and it is a spring that pushes that locking bar up. So what keeps that up and in place and keeps your slide and barreling locked onto the frame. They switched the spring. They did actually kind of a coil spring. You can't really see it that well. We'll try to get a picture of it. But you're not going to see that same metal piece kind of down into the frame. This is the Gen 5 I'm showing you now. So that is a small difference. I really don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. Not many people do a lot of aftermarket stuff to that anyway. One of the major differences is the barrel. So they've actually changed the barrel in the Gen 4 to Gen 5. So in this hand is going to be the Gen 5, and in this hand is going to be the Gen 4. You're going to see a difference. The Gen 4 has more of the polygonal rifling that Glock has had for a long time, and on the Gen 5 they went to more of a traditional land and groove, to where you don't really have a lot of that polygonal shape in your barrel. So that's something to consider. That being said, there's probably going to be some people that don't like that prefer the polygonal, or vice versa. As far as accuracy, these guns are going to be able to outshoot 90% of the people that shoot them. Still very accurate, and we'll show you that in some of the shooting. Just great guns, and these barrels are going to do just fine. So recessed a little bit to protect the crown of the barrel, and the Gen 5 here, as you can see. So something else to note that they changed. Now in the frames, let me pull. We'll throw in a picture of this. Let me try to bring in this piece of paper, some finer details of the two different guns here. So hopefully this kind of piece of paper gives you a little bit better contrast. But Gen 5 on my left here, Gen 4 here. You're going to see I disassembled it on the Gen 4 so to show you the difference. But the plunger is a little bit different on the safety. So this is the plunger kind of on their traditional Gen 4, and the plunger on the Gen 5 has also been changed. So that's a little bit of a consideration. Besides that, the internals are pretty similar. The assembly, or the way to switch your magazine release on this is Gen 5, Gen 4, is the exact same. So those guys that want to switch over the magazine to the right side, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be very simple. But those are some of the differences as far as the internals of the Glock, and it's a sweet shooter. It's a sweet gun. It shoots really well, and we really like it here at Royal Range. So we're going to shoot some rounds through it, spend some trigger time, and put these things through their paces and see how the Gen 5s hold up. I have a feeling they're going to do just fine. All right, guys, so we came down range, and we're about to put some lead through these guns and see how they fire. I'm pretty excited. But before we do it, I want to talk to you guys about two things, specifically holsters and what actually comes in the box with the gun. So first thing is going to be holsters. If you already have a 19 or a 17, then fret not, because these guns will pretty much fit every holster that I've tried to shove them in. For a 17 and 19, they fit perfectly, and they work really well. This particular holster is kind of a custom one that I had made for a 17. I have a 17 Gen 4. This is the 19, and it fits just fine. So obviously it's molded around the trigger guard. A lot of these custom Kydex ones are molded around the trigger guard, and the trigger guard is the exact same on the Gen 4 to the Gen 5. So no fear in that, it should fit. Now, the only thing that you may have problems with is how high that Kydex kind of comes up the gun. You can see that the slide stop is pretty close to the top of this mold. So for this holster, it fits just fine, not a problem. So switching to a different one here, this is a Safariland level 2, so pretty simple, same thing, fits just fine, clips in, so you're not going to have any problems. Let me grab the 17 real quick. Fits in just fine, no problems. So if you already have these holsters, it should slide in. Serpas work just fine. Same thing with the 19s, and even kind of going down into some cheaper options, kind of this Blackhawk Arc holster. So some from the custom Kydex to a real simple holster, they all seem to fit just fine. So not really a concern when it comes to your holsters. So that's nice, because we all know there's a lot of money tied up in holsters. Now let's go into what actually comes with the guns. We have both of the boxes. This is 17, this is 19. The Gen 5s come with 3 magazines. Granted, I wish they did, they don't come loaded. So we have these loaded up to kind of shoot them and give you guys our first impressions. But 3 magazines for each of them. They kind of come with this, this little mag loader. These are all right, but there's some better options out there. It comes with the back straps, as I talked about previously. It does kind of have a little punch there that you could use. I still recommend buying a Glock tool. Glock tools are just super helpful in disassembling and cleaning and everything. You have a cleaning brush, you have your safety lock, and of course you have all of your information that you need as far as instructions and guides and all that stuff. So without ado, we're going to shoot the guns, and I'll give you guys my first impressions. We're just going to be shooting some Blazer Brass. Nothing special, just some range ammo. I'm going to shoot the 19 first. So we have this here. This is legitimately the first round that I've put through this gun. I'm pretty excited. So we're going to be shooting some steel. Obviously, we're here at Royal Range USA, Nashville. We're on our rifle range right now. We just walked down range a little bit, and we're going to see how these guys do. So first impressions, let's see how it does. I like it. It shoots really well. If you're familiar with the 19, then you're going to be familiar with this gun. You can pick it up right away. So first magazine through it, grouped fantastic, good shooting gun. Let's grab this next magazine. So this is what I'm talking about as far as your slide stop being pretty sturdy. So I'm just going to press down on here, nothing real tough, loads it just fine. So you lefties are really going to have an easy time switching over to this gun and shooting Glocks now. I know that's been a complaint and a concern for a long time, so let's see how it does. I like it. It shoots really good. Great gun. All right, so we got a couple rounds through the 19. Let's see what we're working with the 17 here. Let's grab some rounds. So obviously same capacity, guys. A 17 round magazine and a 15 round for the 19. So same exact stuff as far as magazines and everything. So side note, one thing we noticed when we were loading some of these magazines, and we'll roll in a picture of it, is that the orange follower is actually, you can't see it here, well you can maybe see it kind of tucked down there, but the orange follower is really nice. The black followers, when you're loading the magazines and trying to see how many rounds you have in the magazine, it can be really hard to see, and you couldn't be really clear. That orange shows up super bright. So you see the orange when you're loading it, and you know exactly where you are. So first round on the 17. Shoots well, shoots really good. The 17, obviously, being a little bit larger gun, you have, it feels a little bit different, obviously, than 19, a little bit more weight to it, a little bit more mass, a little bit fuller grip.
so it has a little bit less felt recoil. But all in all, guys, I'm impressed with them. They shoot great, just like normal Glocks, and I'm loving these features. It's a cool gun.